Well, it was a classic case of red enveloping yellow. Nothing to do with what's on your screen at the moment, but Punjab coming out on top, doing the double over Chennai. There were times when the brilliance of Ambati Rayudu kept them in the hunt, but some tight bowling, some calm heads got them over the line by 11 runs. And if you take Rayudu out of the equation, especially towards the last bit, it looked a lot more comfortable than that for Punjab. A few heartaches in the last few overs, especially when Dhoni walked in, a little bit of drama. But the two names on that bowling card, Kagiso Rabada, Arshdeep Singh. Arshdeep Singh didn't finish with a 5-wicket haul, often gets unnoticed, but his role along with Rabada's will have to be talked about. Welcome to Cricbuzz Live, looking back at a precious 2 points for Punjab. We'll have a look at the points table later on, but for now, let's get first reaction from Simon and Harsha. So often, we talk about those players who slip under the radar. Arshdeep Singh must be captain of that team.
Brilliant, absolutely superb. Really, I mean, I just enjoying watching him bowl this year. He seems a lot more composed, a lot calmer. He's got a genuine role in this side. It is to bowl 1 or 2 up front, maybe 1 or 2, one in the middle, and then 2 at the death if he's only bowled 1 up front. But he just is absolutely superb, and more often than not, he is doing the job and doing exactly what is required. Bowling to quality players, 4 overs, 1 for 23. I mean, those 8 overs, 3 for 46 between he and Kagiso Rabada. When you think back to what we talked about with Pretorius and Bravo, from the Chennai point of view, that is just exceptional. So, really, really pleased for him too. He seems like he's got a good, calm head on his shoulders, I think.
Yeah, that's the one I want to pick up from Dhoni for you, Harsha. The temperament as much as all the Yorkers and everything else.
There's such a lesson here for everybody. And I've brought this up before, but I'm only repeating it because I think it's worthy of that. Who were the quicks that went to the Under-19 World Cup? Sometimes you think, he did nothing at the Under-19 World Cup. Tilak Verma did nothing at the Under-19 World Cup. And Arshdeep Singh was number 4 of the pecking order in that Under-19 World Cup. And he's probably the best out of the 4 who went there. Mm-hmm. But his temperament is excellent. I think it was the 2020 IPL when we first said, who's this slim young Sikh who bowls these excellent wide Yorkers? Then he had a good season in 21, but that over he bowled today to back up Rabada's over. That is where the game turned. After Sandeep Sharma's over, you had a moment. I don't know, Dooley's an expert in these things. I got the feeling he'd done his back, Rayudu. Because he was just holding it. He was tired. He was panting. I think he'd done his back. I don't know what it was. But at that point, CSK needed somebody else to take the baton. And that somebody else wasn't around. But it's 2 great overs from Rabada and Arshdeep.
Yeah, I mean, you just think back to the progression of that innings. We were all writing off Chennai at that time. Good effort, boys. Maybe a few blows from Rayudu. But one out-and-out attack. Suddenly, 14.9 or 15 comes down to just a shade under 12, which you would say batting side favourites with wickets in hand. Dhoni to come, Bravo to come if required. So at that time, suddenly, you're saying the batting side are favourites and onus on you, Kagiso, onus on you, Arshdeep, again.
Yeah, you are. And look, that's what happens. I mean, that's why you get paid the big bucks. Kagiso Rabada, he does it, as often as he doesn't. And I think, tonight he was impressive again. But, those 2 overs back-to-back after Sandeep went for, was it 23? I think it was off that over. And he bowled. And remember, that over started with a dot and a single as well. And then went for 23. So look, it was just brilliant. You need those overs, and then Rishi Dhawan at the back end. And when in the end, Rishi Dhawan's bowled 4 overs, 2 for 39. It actually wasn't that bad, in the sort of grand scheme of things. His first game, I think, for 6 years, was it? So
5 and a bit, yeah.
5 and a bit years, his first game. So I think he's done a pretty good job. And look, nobody apart from when you look back at that at the night. I mean, Shikhar Dhawan's innings, brilliant. Ambati Rayudu's innings, brilliant. But who else in that game, apart from a little 19 from Livingston, really looked like they had things under control? I mean, Ruturaj Gaikwad struggled for his 30 off 27, and nobody else could go much better than a run a ball for a length of time until, I think Dhoni went at 150, but it was 12 off 8. So nobody was really, putting the hammer down at all, apart from Rayudu and Shikhar's innings. So it wasn't an easy surface either, I don't think.
What a good point Dooley makes. And yet, look at the nature of the modern game, Gautam. 360 runs were made, and you had two batsmen and a bit of an innings really conquering the bowlers, and yet you got 360. It tells you how good those were. But Dooley, I'm just looking on the app over by over. After the 23-run Sandeep Sharma over was 6 by Arshdeep, 6 by Rabada, 8 by Arshdeep. And there they just took the game away completely, and they really set it up. It didn't matter. I mean, there was no way Rishi Dhawan no one is going to concede 27 runs in that last over. But that 6-6-8 tells you why death bowling is such a good commodity and why you need support. There were two there, not one. Yeah. Some teams have one. There are two.
Was he retained? Am I right in saying that Arshdeep was retained?
Arshdeep was retained.
He was. Mayank Agarwal, Arshdeep Singh, the only two retainees.
But then he retained two. And at the time we thought, Arshdeep was actually a good retention. Because I think, he
uncapped. So they got him
uncapped, so they didn't have to pay him a lot either. So very good retention. And he's proven, his numbers this year, I don't know them off the top of my head, but I sort of go back and at least 2 or 3 games he's been really exceptional, going under 30, and to me he's really found a nice rhythm. I was watching him walk back to the top of his mark, and it was almost like he was talking to Mayank and saying, "No, I've got this. It's all right. This is what I'm going to do. This is my plan. This is what I want to do." He missed once, didn't he? Missed once to Dhoni, who with a slightly. Almost a half volley, but not quite, which got crunched for 4 through a wideish long off. But outside of that, he pretty much nailed it and was very, very impressive. He's also, what I have noticed this year is, I don't know whether he's put a yard on or not, but he's got a good quick bouncer as well. You watch him bowl that bouncer to a new batsman, jeepers, it's more than useful.
Yeah, and that
Preeti Zinta, if you're watching, or if you're not watching, we'll send you a little clip. Give the kid a raise. Give the kid a raise. You've got him for very little. Give him a raise.
Yeah, that boundary that Dooley was talking about came at a time when they were really looking for the ones that were going up in the stands. And that's what makes it even more creditable. But Harsha, I think just to sum this up, probably one of the reasons, we all know the capability of Kagiso Rabada. He's an international star. We know what Arshdeep is capable of, and he's delivering. And yet the reason we probably don't talk about them is because Punjab are such a Livingston, Bairstow, Mayank, Shikhar, star-dominated side, batting-dominated side.
The teams at the top of the points table are the bowling teams. The teams in the lower half of the table are not bowling teams. And I can see Simon nodding his head so vigorously in defense of his own tribe. But that is what it is. Even today, it's the bowlers who won it. And this is the thing about playing on good wickets. When there is something for the bowlers, we've got to a stage in T20 cricket where 170, 175 will happen. But if you've got a good bowling side, you've got a greater chance of winning. Bowlers always win you championships. We've always said bowlers win you championships. But this year's IPL, because of the tracks we've had, has been fantastic. But there's a story to be told in that Chennai Super Kings batting order. If you could just get the card up for Chennai Super Kings, just look at Ambati Rayudu and just look at everybody else. You'll realize why it was a one-man band. He's made 78 of 39 balls. So that means 98 runs of the other 81 balls. We're not even talking about the extras yet. There is nothing in terms of strike rate. And I think, Dooley, you were talking about the top 4 as well, weren't you?
Yeah, the top 4. What did we work out? We worked out 56 balls and 47 runs between the top 4, which is just not good enough. They've faced almost half the deliveries for 47 runs. And it just 1 from 7 for Robbie Uthappa. Mitchell Santner experiment is just not working at the moment. He was similar numbers in the previous game, I think, or similar strike rate. In the previous game. Shivam Dubey, look, he's had a very good time of it. So he's allowed a bad night, but you can't have all 4 of those guys going at just a little bit over 100 and then all well under 100 strike rate. So it just can't happen.
Gautam, was it an MI-CSK game where Ambati Rayudu hit 72 of 27, 28 balls or whatever, and that was the Pollard blitzkrieg, wasn't it? And that took the game away from CSK?
At the Wankhede.
Might have been. And there was another Rayudu special, 72 of 27, 28 balls. I don't know. I've long felt that the man of the match award should go to the player of the match rather than the player of the winning side. This was breathtaking. I mean, Shikhar Dhawan, Ambati Rayudu.
I'd give it to Rabada tonight.
But you're a bowler, so it's Have you realized, Gautam, how many bowlers there are in the commentary box these days? It's just the bowlers getting the player of the match award. It's full of bowlers.
But I must confess, I'll say something in defense of the opposite of what you just said, Harsha. I'm one of those who's in that camp of man of the match from the winning side. I mean, kudos to the person who's got that. Having said that, I think we should just stay on Rayudu for a moment and just talk about the brilliance of that, because when he strides out to the crease, you're thinking, okay, we've got Robbie Uthappa out. He's the swashbuckler. He's a stylist. Rituraj Gaikwad's not going too well. Mitchell Santner is, supposed to bunt it out of the park. You're not expecting him to come that hard at you. What is the secret of Ambati Rayudu, even at this age?
What did you just say about Arshdeep? I think he always delivers. Rayudu is always there for CSK. It's just that he flies a little bit under the radar because of all the performances around him. But he's fantastic. I love his attitude. He's a battle tank in a small body. He is always game for a fight. And you up the pressure and he'll come fighting hard at you. He won't buckle under. You see, some people, when the situation gets tough, they just buckle under a little bit. Rayudu just becomes twice his size in a pressure situation. And those are the kind of players you want. You look at him, he doesn't look the prettiest of players. Robin Uthappa hits 30 and you say, oh, wow, that looks beautiful. Surya Kumar Yadav is 30. You remember, Rayudu will slash one here, he'll pull one here, he'll hit one there. And Rayudu's an artisan. Maybe he's a hard worker, but he's always there. He's always there. And who cares what it looks like? He keeps delivering. I have a lot of admiration for Ambati Rayudu, who's had to reinvent himself so many times.
I love the comparison. Harsha, he's got away with words usually, but sometimes it's just so perfect. The artist versus the artisan, the battle tank. These metaphors are going to stay with me. But Dhoni, that really does sum up Rayudu, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, it does. And I'm just looking through his numbers, and he's batted, I think, if I can sort of remember back through the years, 3, 4, 5 probably would have been his numbers throughout the years of IPL. He's had 182 games, 170 innings, averages just a tick under 30 and strikes at 127. So, they're pretty good numbers for a guy who's batting at 4-5 or 3-4-5 throughout his career. I think he plays spin brilliantly. That's certainly one of the keys to his game. And he's able to go at it. Once he finds a tempo, he's able to just continue on at that tempo. And, we saw that tonight. Once he got the pace of the surface, he was just absolutely brilliant. He's the sort of player that you would love to have at a World Cup, isn't he? Like maybe in 2019 or something like that. If you had the opportunity to select him, it'd be a really good player for a World Cup, I would have thought. I don't know.
Look where that's coming from.
Looking around to see who might agree with me.
He only had one dimension.
Dhoni, there's someone at the door.
I thought I heard the bell.
Yeah, there's probably someone who you're trying to make the point to there as well. But Harsha, whether it was the back, whether it was just pure fatigue, he probably got out at the right time in that sense. If he was not striking it then, the wicket was maybe a blessing for them, but they had to finish from there.
But the only person who looked like finishing was him. So I don't know how bad he was. He was exhausted. There's no doubt at all. I don't know how bad it was because he knows how bad it was. And we were not at the ground. We don't know. We don't see that between overs. So I don't know how bad it was. But the one person who could have finished was him because, Livingston did come and hit 19 of 7 balls, but he's a young power hitter. The one I'm a little disappointed by, I thought Jadeja would have finished a little more strongly. Jadeja came into those Arshdeep and Rabada overs. So you could say he got 3 very good overs. But I thought Jadeja. See how Ashwin and Jadeja always come together. I think Jadeja needed to connect one more. If Jadeja had connected 1-6 somewhere, then suddenly the equation would have come down. So I expected a little bit more from Jadeja.
Is it just about the brilliance? We started the show talking about the brilliance of that bowling pair of Arshdeep and Rabada. Do we just put it down to that, or do we say we really wanted a little bit more out of our finishers?
Well, I think we have to because, at times we sit here and we talk about how poor some of the death bowling has been, missing your length, missing your Yorkers, all these things. Tonight they didn't miss. They didn't miss the Yorkers. They didn't miss the length. When they bowled a bouncer, they meant it. It raced through at helmet height. There was nothing half-hearted in that sort of hip to chest region. That when they nailed the Yorkers, they pretty much nailed them. We just talked about the one that Ashdeep missed, but outside of that, I'm going to say that this is just a brilliant bowling performance, and I don't think they allowed the batsmen to free their arms. They didn't allow them to hit to the short side of the ground. They didn't allow them to hit down the ground. So yeah, maybe who knows? I don't know whether there's a finisher in the competition at the moment that would have done a better job than Dhoni and Jadoo at the end of that innings. I thought it was exceptional bowling. And it just showed exactly how you bowl overs 17, 18 and 19. And you set the game up and you take all the pressure off whoever had to bowl that last over, whether they went to Chahar or whether they went to Livingston or they went with Rishi Dhawan in the end. But they just took all that pressure away by bowling 3 brilliant overs and didn't allow either batsman or any of the batsmen to get under the ball or to get away with anything. So I'm going to say brilliant bowling tonight.
Yep.
Dooley Shikhar was man of the match.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has to be a batsman.
Kevin Peterson must have chosen it.
But you just took away my line, Harsha. I was going to say I've just been told it's Dhawan who's man of the match. I need to check which one.
Follow the app. You get everything on the app.
Yeah, we do. There. And there's something else I was just looked up on the app. A little bit of irony. I remember talking about the little argument. We didn't get into an argument because we kind of agreed, but a possible difference of opinion as to whether Punjab could have gone a little harder, if Rajapaksa had got out earlier, Livingston had batted, etc., etc. I will just take you back to the first game between these two teams. Punjab won that as well. It was a Livingston special with Punjab batting first. Guess how much they finished with? 180.
Yeah.
Today, it was not a Livingston special. He didn't get enough time. Guess how much they finished with? 187.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that too, GB, didn't we? Even at the halfway stage, just around the whole summing it up. And I think, Shikhar probably deserves the player of the match because I think he did sum it up. He summed up the conditions quite well. They knew it wasn't a 220 surface. They knew it had been played on last night. There was a lot going on in that innings that I think he realised quite quickly that if he couldn't do it, it was going to be very difficult for the next man to come in. And that's probably what Rayudu recognised as well. It's very difficult to get started. And so when you look at the numbers, maybe you're saying if for all the batters outside of Livingston, it was very difficult to get started. So I think they just summed it up beautifully and backed their bowlers with a 180. And at one stage, it looked like, 165, 170. So to get to 180 odd was key.
Yeah, absolutely. He played the conditions so beautifully. Shikhar's experience came out, was there to see. Dooley is absolutely correct. He just played the conditions perfectly, quickly realized it's his kind of surface that you keep wickets in hand and 155 becomes 180. You go for it and 160 becomes 140 sometimes. Not every day, sometimes. So he's played the conditions perfectly. Dooley's right.
Man, overall, all-round game, all-round performance from Punjab. They took the runs from Shikhar Dhawan and Rajapaksa and company and added that to the brilliance of the bowling at the very end, and they completed a double over Chennai. What does that do to the points table? Certainly doesn't look good reading for Chennai because they desperately wanted to cling on at 6. What it's done is, as we briefly talked about or previewed, Punjab now go to 8, Harsha, and they've leapfrogged Delhi and Kolkata, who will be playing in a couple of days' time at the Wankhede against each other. So that sort of starts putting them in the comfortable position where one more win, you're in double figures, and you're starting to think, okay, we don't want to get into on a losing run here.
Delhi have got a game in hand, though, which allows them to catch up with Punjab. But if Delhi are playing Kolkata and Delhi win that game, then it becomes very, very difficult for Kolkata to come back. And KKR might just start joining the other two teams there. If KKR beat DC, so that KKR-DC match is actually turning out to be a pretty good one when it comes there. But, we talked earlier on about Punjab. I just hope they retain. What do they do with Rajapaksa, for example? Do they retain this bowling side, keep Rajapaksa in the side, give him a license to go? But now they've pulled out a good match. I hope they don't start making 2-3 changes again.
The one thing that I think that they could look at, and I'm just having a quick look at their squad. If they wanted to leave Rishi Dhawan out, maybe get Harpreet Brar back in. As the surfaces are just slowing a touch. I thought he was really good at times last year, wasn't he? In the UAE, he's brilliant in the field. He's got a little bit of ability with the bat, but I think that may be the one thing they can look at if they've got their seam, if they're happy enough with their seam bowling attack, is to maybe keep. I mean, Sandeep was good for the most part tonight. I thought he bowled brilliantly up front. You keep Sandeep, Ashdeep, and Rabada. And then you've got Rahul Chahar and a left arm spin option as well, and then Livingston if required. So I just wonder, as the surface is slow a touch, whether Harpreet Brar comes into the mixer a little bit.
Yeah, well, they've got a little bit of time to think about that for the moment. The people who don't have enough time, who will be getting ready for the game tomorrow. It's still tomorrow. And that's the one we're going to talk about right here. We're going to talk about a battle for the top. Bangalore against Rajasthan. Bangalore have just had a game recently. Rajasthan haven't also played too long ago. We still seem to remember the last Butler innings yet again. So they're having a quick turnaround, Harsha. And this is a battle at the very top.
I would like to see Rajasthan win without a huge contribution from Butler. At the moment, Butler's playing on a different planet. And so he's taking the entire side along with him. At some point, Butler's going to fail. And I'd like to see, on that day, I'd like to see the Patikals, the Samsons, the Hetmeyers. Maybe they're playing Karun Nair now. Those kind of players to stand up. But if Butler keeps giving starts like those, where is that game? Let's try and see what... it doesn't matter for Butler
it's at
where
Pune.
The game is.
Well, I'll just tell you where the game is, Harsha. It's the only one of the four where he hasn't made 100 yet.
There you go. I mean, if he makes 100 again... whatever. But the incentive for Rajasthan Royals, and it's a place they haven't recognized for a long time, is they go top of the table if they win. Because they will be level on points with Gujarat Titans and ahead on net run rate. And I'll tell you what, if you meet anybody who tells you that just past the halfway point, Gujarat Titans and Rajasthan Royals would be on top, push them back because their nose is touching the wall. Nobody expected this. It's been some IPL this.
It certainly has. So Butler plus 10. Let's look at the Rajasthan squad and see if they need to add anything in terms of that or subtract anything in terms of their personnel. The new face, if you like, in this latter half of the first half has been Obaid McCoy for them, Simon. And he's certainly added a little dimension to it, especially because he hasn't been seen enough in these parts.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, he's got some good weapons. He's got some good slow balls. He's a player that the West Indies have played whenever they could. He's had trouble with his shin splints. I was actually asking about it. He said we heard it was shin splints. I was talking to him after the first game he played. He was nervous as anything post that game as well. And he said he was nervous bowling the last over, but it was actually cracked. His shin bone was cracked, and they thought it was shin splints the whole way along. So he's had to wait for that to heal rather than just a normal case of shin splints. It was a lot more severe than that.
If a bone is cracked, does it ever become fully strong again? He's a young man, so it will heal fully.
I think he seems like he's okay now, but everyone kept telling him, he kept being diagnosed one way, and eventually they figured out it was actually cracked. So he just had to take time off it and wait for it to heal. And it's all good now, and he's back in the mixer. So he's been a good asset for Rajasthan. Look, they're still winning. They're picking the same team. They're playing, I think, with 10 men and a half a man, but they just keep picking the same side, and they keep winning. So it's hard to complain, isn't it?
What they've done is they've gone with 5 full bowlers. And they're saying, right, 5 bowlers, you bowl your 20. If it comes to that, we'll get an over or two here and there, but we'll go five bowlers. And if that is the plan, and if Yashasvi Jaiswal is indeed fit, and they send him back and say, okay, you go and just be the battering ram, just go and hit your way through and give us the starts, that could just make the batting a little stronger. But then Devdutt Padikkal is just starting to get back into form, top of the order. So maybe not Yashasvi. But otherwise, they're a good side. Karun Nair, I hope he does well. Karun Nair hasn't had a great record behind him. So They are what? They're Butler, Samson, Padikkal, Hetmyer, the four batsmen.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Padikkal or Yashasvi Jaiswal, I'm bowling in the nets. I'm finding a way to figure out some off spin. Just do something. I mean, surely I can offer as much as Riyan Parag is offering.
Jaiswal does bowl.
Like Yashasvi bowl?
He does.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
So he comes straight back into the side if he's fit. And that just strengthens their batting all the way. Then they actually play with 6 batters and 5 bowlers. Because at the moment, they're just not quite getting that.
In fact, Yashasvi is one of the rare breed. He's a leg break bowler and does a fair bit of bowling in local T20 competitions as well. But just one interesting thing to add. The last time they played in Pune, they got 210 for 6. And guess who didn't got too many? Jos Buttler. He got 35 of 28. It was Jaiswal with a start, Samson 55 of 27, Padikkal 41 of 29, batting at 4. Hetmyer finished well with 3 sixes, and they got 210. And the only person who didn't perform was Nathan Coulter-Nile, who got hit for 50 in his 3 overs, and it was bye-bye.
That was it.
Hetmyer is a good player, man.
Yeah, I mean they've got a good bowling attack, and I think that's the one thing that we've always said about Rajasthan is that they've struggled with their bowling combinations and getting their bowling combinations right. I just think they've got a very, very good bowling attack, and it goes back to the point Harsha made earlier, and the point we talk about often. Bowlers win you tournaments, they win you competitions, and batters have to shine as well. They have to put runs on the board, but bowlers and bowling attacks can win you competitions, and these guys and Rajasthan in particular have now got a really high quality 5-pronged bowling attack.
Bangalore not looking too bad in that department either. This is where they've had problems in the past. They're starting to fix it. To what extent it's been fixed, we'll probably see it later in the tournament. But for now, with Hazelwood in the mix there, Harshal Patel, after the bereavement, he's back in the scheme of things. Shahbaz has been contributing. Probably the one disappointment in terms of sheer impact has been Wanindu Hasaranga, Harsha.
He's just tailed off. A couple of people have just tailed off. Hasaranga has just tailed off, especially his batting. I think he should contribute more with the bat, but he only gets 2 or 3 balls. Yeah, his bowling has just tailed off a little bit, but I think he'll come back. They will stay with him. They need to look at Anuj Rawat again and see if they could do something about Anuj Rawat there. Should they go back to a Rajat Patidar who played last year a little bit, or could they go to a Mahipal Lomror who's also a left-hander? Because Anuj Rawat has had 1 good innings and they've stuck with him. But you look down that side, if you had told me that they would have won 5 games out of 8 with nothing from Virat, you would have said, no chance. No ABs this year, even if Virat's not scoring, will they be 5 out of 8? So I think that's good. And much like Rajasthan Royals, look, Siraj can sometimes be expensive, but Hazelwood is twice the bowler that he was before he went to Chennai Super Kings last year. So Harshal Patel, Hasaranga. So they've also got a pretty good bowling side. It's just the top order they need to sort with Faf, Anuj Rawat, and
would there be any consideration? It's hard to say when you're winning, isn't it? Would there be any consideration of playing a Karan Sharma and dropping Hasaranga for a game or 2, and maybe dropping Anuj Rawat and bringing in Finn Allen?
I was just going to say,
top of the order.
I mean, that could be an explosive top order.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at that, or you could bring in Shafane Rutherford in the middle order and open with Kohli. And Faf du Plessis, and then maybe look at Shafane Rutherford to bat in the middle order, or Finn Allen to bat at 3, whichever way you want to go about that, and just play Karan Sharma. I mean, at the moment, Hasaranga's he had a good start, and probably only had 1.5 decent games really with the ball, so he's not giving you an enormous amount. It may be something that they would look at. I don't know whether they'll look at that while they're still going okay. But in these sorts of tournaments, if you let it go for too long, you might be out of the tournament before you decide to make a change. It may be worth an opportunity now.
The other thing they could do is they could go back to Akashdeep, who was pretty good, and play just 4 quicks. Play 4 quicks and get Maxwell and the way SRH do. Get Maxwell and Shahbaz to give them 4 overs. Maxwell and Shahbaz 4 overs. Play 4 quicks like Sunrisers are doing. Sunrisers have won 5 on the trot playing 4 quicks.
Yeah.
And that allows you to then play another overseas batsman in place of Anuj Rawat.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and we've got those two options. I mean, I was almost going to start the conversation by saying, Dooley, what does Finn Allen have to do to get into the side? And simply because you couldn't see which of the 4 overseas they'd leave out. But I guess Hasaranga would be a contender at some point in time. Whether that will happen or not, we shall only find out just before the game in Pune. But it should be an exciting clash, if nothing else. We also have a little clash with our brain cells to take care of. Joy Bhattacharya tends to do that to us. He's posed yet another question. This was the question, just to remind all of you. And it was, this cricketer's last wicket was De Bruyne of the Titans in March 2022, who was the last player his twin brother dismissed. And I think between the three of us, we figured out that they're talking about the Jansen twins, and the brother we haven't really seen much of playing in South Africa is Duan Jansen, and Marco Jansen, who we saw picking up Anuj Rawat's, among many other wickets during that Hyderabad-Bangalore match, which they did so well in.
Isn't he also a tall left-hander?
Yeah, I think that's the same.
What is Duan Jansen? I think he's also a tall left-hander. But if he is, can you imagine the two of them bowling from either end?
Yeah, that'd be a good backyard game, that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard they're the same height. And I've heard they're the same height. And they have another brother who apparently is taller. Apparently.
Okay. Duan Jansen. What kind of player is he?
Okay, Harsha, you look that up while
Harsha's Googling.
While we award the winner. Who's the winner of the question who figured this one out? And the winner today is Rahul Patil. Well done, Rahul. Oh, Rahul Patil NZ. Rahul Patil NZ. Friend of yours, Julie?
Yes, yep, he is. He's Ajaz Patil's brother.
Very good. Very good. There you go. Harsha, have you got any further with the Jansen family?
I'm getting there.
I was going to say the Jansen
left arm
family
fast, right hand bat.
Okay.
Left arm fast, right hand bat.
But height, we were supposed to find his height out.
Oh, I mean, you're now height. That doesn't matter. He's tall.
All right, fair enough.
You can't have such varied genes within one family. You can't have 1 6'7", 1 5'8".
Especially if they're twins, identical or fraternal, twin brothers, Juan and Marco. Marco's been in the IPL, and that's the answer we were looking forward to. So well done in getting that, Rahul. We'll have lots more answers coming from all of you. We've just ticked past midnight, so we're going to see you later today for an exciting clash from Pune between Rajasthan and Bangalore. Until then, from Simon Doull, Harsha Bhogle, and myself, it's good night.